OK、これ5。それで、と、OK、じゃあ、これ43分から、ここから始めて。
We need to learn from the Chinese about state competence. This is not a subject that's been discussed in the West, but it will be discussed in the West. And here we have much to learn from the Chinese. Thank you very much.
この後からだよね、きっとね。で、これでね、ちょっとね、これは、これのスピーカーをね、ちょっとね、説明したいんですけど、今終わったマーティン・ジャックは、he is author of When China Ruled the World, the visiting senior research fellow at the London School of Economics, and visiting professor at Tsinghua University, Beijing. This is Martin Jack. And the first speaker, Chang Weiwei, he is a senior fellow at the Chunjiu Institute. I don't know Chunjiu Institute, but author of he's a famous of China Wave, just the rise of civilization state, and former translator to Deng Xiaoping. And last week I did Anson Chan. She's very famous person, is former chief secretary of Hong Kong and campaigner for democracy. So her presentation area of democracy is marvelous. Do you remember? Yes. Okay. And the last speaker is now the last speaker. He is going to make a presentation, Jonathan Milski, and he speaks very first instead of his old age, and historian of China and former China correspondent for the Observer and East Asia editor of the Times. Okay, she is Guy Woods, inaugural dean of the Blavatnik School of Government and professor of global economic governance at Oxford University. She's Oxford University professor. Yeah, okay. So this is I just pick it up. And also final one is this very difficult word this time. I need to explain the last one. Where from he just I don't know which one is vocabulary supposed to be. Might be so many, but okay. Around here, okay, we try to explain around here. From where we can't do, okay, but anyway, from here. Maybe ubiquitous, you understand, right? Allegedly pacify, decent, tipping point, disempower, meet out, distinction, wipe, shear, envisage, disintegration, quantum leap, concede, backtrack, by-election, degenerate. This is, many people understand degenerate. This is getting worse, right? Degenerate. Weep, polster, paternalism. Paternalism is this one is normally is meaning its own Joshi. Infantilization, qualous, whole out, resonate, This word is used so often, many places. Donate. This also often using with large, foresight. This basket case and piggy bank is a former speaker, just I put it already on. Okay, this one is a new, little bit difficult word. I'm going to, you should study. Then she's going to introduce last speaker.
So our next speaker, speaking against the motion, is Jonathan Mirsky, a historian of China, in 1989 named International Reporter of the Year for his coverage of the Tiananmen uprising by British deputy.
So it means 1989 Tiananmen Square incident. So he is fairly old. Since then is 25 years later, right? So he's supposed to be over 80.
Was the award by British newspapers. Jonathan's interest in China, he's explained to me, goes right back from his parents, who lived in Beijing in the 1930s, working in the Peking University medical colleges. Jonathan, it's a pleasure to have you at the debate.
Well, he's graduating Beijing University somewhere.
I feel very uneasy about going on about this because I think Anson, as I just wrote a note to her, gave the very best talk on what democracy and civil rights are really all about that I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, she was good.
I think my friend Roger Garside may be here. Put your hand up. Are you here, Roger? Yes, there he is. He wrote a book a long time ago after Mao's death called Coming Alive in Peking when he was just after he'd been in the British embassy there. It was about Democracy Wall, as it was called. And the man who had been the great star at Democracy Wall was Wei Jing-shun, who went to jail for 15 years thereafter for what was called sedition. So I'm not here to say that the American or the British model of democracy is the best or even a model. I'm certainly not going to say what Martin Jake said, that we have to learn that a bad model of democracy is Italy. But we could think about Iceland or Sweden or Norway. Now, what I really have in mind is this. For 4 years, when I was in a kind of second stage of learning about China, I lived in China. And there was a very brutal dictator in charge. He had a terrifying wife. There were a lot of political prisoners. There was no free press. It was really very scary if you were.
Maybe he's talking about 1989. Is not Mao Zedong. Former premier of Deng Xiaoping. What's the name in Chinese? I forgot.
Chinese. Then that dictator died, and before long,
he's a dictator, the Mao Zedong.
Son took over, and that place is now
his son.
Democracy. That's Taiwan. It's full of Chinese who wanted really what, in fact, had been denied to them for many years. And after that, I worked in China for many years, and over again in Tiananmen and lots of other times and places. I saw the need of many Chinese, as they expressed, for these models of a kind of democracy, a free press that's not stifled, that can say what it's like, and can even be pornographic and wrong and libelous. Scandalous.
Libelous means誹謗中傷 誹謗中傷 I didn't tell you this before those here 名誉毀損 libel okay scabulous is 卑猥な This is, I think, okay.
That there should be free speech. That aside from, again, from slander, things of that kind, and racist remarks, that there should be free speech. That there should be freedom of assembly, that people can get together in groups. In fact, it's what Obama said last night at his speech, that what you see in America is the argument for political change, impossible in China today, but a good thing. Regular elections that people know are going to happen. You might get a terrible leader, you might get a good one. You can't be sure, but at least people can get rid of the government, or they know it'll go away after a while. And above all, the rule of law, something really predictable. And then I think, it's a thing I was thinking about in the cab coming over, a real education, so that if you meet young Chinese who are the elite, who are here at the LSE or at Oxford or Cambridge, and if you say to them, what happened in Tiananmen Square in 1989? They say it was a riot, and bad people shot down our army and our police. That's what they've been taught in school, and there are many examples of that kind of thing. So what we see is that on the Chinese internet, I just did this today to see what the words were that you can't get, that are not, they're not available. You can't read about one Jiabao, the premier, who turns out to be in the family of billionaires.
Premier is Xi Jinping, and they have 350 million US dollars, right? Just a family of billionaires.
Word Taiwan can't appear on the Chinese internet unless you're very good at dodging around it. Democracy, Tibet, Dalai Lama. If you use any of those words, there can be a knock on the door and you can go inside. It's true that you can say things in restaurants, or you can say things outside of them. All of a sudden something happens. So that if you...
She is talking about something criticize government, it cause some problem he talking about. This is not true.
You're the Nobel Prize winner, Liu Xiaobo.
Oh, this is, he is, Li Xiaobo is almost dead, right? Cancer. Now.
You
Nobel
go into
Prize
jail for
laureate.
about 11 years. Or Ai Weiwei, the man who helped to design the Olympic Stadium, is a man who now can't leave China. There is no real concerted political action. If you try that, as in Tiananmen, and in the 300 other...
So those people, he said couple names, Tiananmen Square, just opponent against Chinese government. But these people had many times opportunity to go outside China, but they denied. They wanted to stay China. That's the reason they are arrested. Okay.
There are cities where there were big demonstrations in the spring of 1989. If you try that, the people who have tried that concerted political action may or may not go to jail, or they may be shot down. Or what we just heard about the standing committee that's about to be unveiled. That's what's about to happen in China. They're about to have 7...
But she is talking about a little bit old story. Because she was in China, I think, 1980s and 90s, or first front of several years in 90s.
Or 9,
not now.
New men always. They're being unveiled. Now, I think there are 700 of you here. I wonder if there are 20 people in this room who can name one name of those people who are going to be running China in the next 10 years. And most Chinese are the same. They have never heard of most of these people, and they will discover who they are after they've been unveiled. In law, the Chinese statement is verdict first, trial afterwards.
Verdict first, trial afterward means verdict is what the problem or the result of the trial. Okay, verdict. Result of trial, 判決, verdict first, and then trial later. So normally trial first and the result is verdict, right? 裁判が先で判決後でしょ This is China is different.
And that happens over and over again. So that, for instance, when the wife of a man who's now also been disgraced, who was about...
Oh, this wife she's talking about the wife of Boshirai, Hakukirai, Boshirai. Darren, former mayor of the city, right?
to go on to the standing committee, was she lied.
Boshirai,
She was accused of
Hakukirai.
murdering the British businessman Hayward.
British businessman killed. Hayward is she killed.
She read out what was the charge against her. It had all been written down for her at her trial, and then she was condemned. And as I say in education, if you ask Chinese now what they know about their own past, it's very, very little. And if you ask them what they think happened in certain great events, or what they think of the Dalai Lama, or about what goes on in Tibet, they'll give you the government lie. So these are the things that I think are the big problems, that free speech, some kind of community action, a free press, all of these things wouldn't change these things, but they would start to make it possible to think about changing them. The enormous gap in China between rich and poor, which is very well expressed in Mr. Jacobs.
Oh, he's changing the issue, rich and poor.
The vast official corruption, which is what the Chinese say when they're polled by Pew, is the
Pew is Pew Research.
thing that they regard as the most important problem. The one-child system, which may be now about to be changed, which has led to a very unbalanced society in which there are far too many old people and young people are going to have to support huge families and very, very old. I think we'll talk some more about this in the question and answer session. So what I'm not saying is that we have the model here, or that we in the West have solved these problems. But these problems about corruption, about the violence of the state, about the fact that Mao Zedong's portrait still hangs over Tiananmen Square. Can you imagine that happening in Germany with Hitler, or in Cambodia with Pol Pot? I mean, it's really revolting, isn't it?
So he is talking about Chinese is very far from democracy. First of all, China is authoritarian or dictatorship, but also they don't have a free press, freedom of speech. So he is talking about this, right? And also he said beforehand, he said, Hakirai, Boshirai, so, just trial, verdict first, and after trial. This is judiciary, no judiciary independence. Okay?
So I think that we can discuss all this in the question and answer period. I look forward to that. I'd like to say one more thing. If I were a Chinese and I said any of the things that I've just said here to you tonight, and I said these things in China, I'd go straight to jail tomorrow, and I'd be in jail for years and years and years. It's a great thing, isn't it, that we can say these things here, or that my Chinese colleagues can...
Oh, by the way, currently Japanese people arrested in China, 35 people.
say what they want to say here. They can say it and nothing will happen. If I tried saying these things and I were a Chinese in China today, tomorrow I'd be behind bars. So think about that and think how you would like it if you were a Chinese. Thanks.
So that's the formal proposers for and against the motion. Let me now announce to you what your views were as you walked into the hall before the debate began.
This is very interesting, later part of that question and answer. And especially for Jack and Zhang Weiwei cannot answer all of the questions from audience. Very interesting. Anthony Chan is very superb to answer for audience questions.
Those of you voting for the motion, that's to say those of you believing that Western liberal democracy would be wrong for China, 228. Those against the motion, 202. And those in the don't know category, which we hope will be 0 at the end of the debate, 196. So there's 196 minds out there to shake, panelists. You've now got a chance to answer some of their questions. So let me open it up to you. Questions, comments. If they're comments, they're going to have to be very brief. Yes, over just right in front of you, a gentleman's holding his hand up. Yeah.
Hi. One of the key things that's been mentioned for legitimacy of the Chinese government is the amount of growth in China, which is historically unprecedented. Why is China growing so fast? I'd love to understand that a bit better.
Great. And next, if you can come up to the middle here, the lady with her hand up.
I've just got a couple of quick comments to make. Firstly, whilst the economic growth has been unprecedented in China over the last 30 years, it seems it's becoming increasingly untenable with the civil riots that have been taking place. They've increased tenfold in the last 10 years, from what I understand, to over about 150,000 per year. Surely that's a sign of growing civil unrest. And secondly, I just wanted to make a point to say...
She's talking about civic protest in China. So he said last year 150,000, so many. Okay.
That the function of the state is to serve the people, but if the people can't create consensus or participate with decisions of the state, then surely the state isn't serving the country's true interests.
So second point is people will not be affected by top people decision. Okay. So
Thank you.
2 points. He's right.
Up here to the gentleman in the front.
During the Great Leap Forward by initiative.
Great leap forward means what to say in Japanese? Direction, 1950s by Mao Zedong, and how many? 30, 40 million people dead because of farming, the gashi farming.
From Mao Zedong in 1958, it's estimated that 38 million people died
38 million people died.
of starvation. And it seems to me that an authoritarian regime such as China is fundamentally ill-equipped to prevent a repetition of such a catastrophe.
Thank you. I'm going to take one more question and then come to the panelists. Just back there, the gentleman with his hand up.
If you have to make a comparison, China is more like Asian Greek.
Romans or Greeks? Yeah. So, panelists, why is China growing so fast?
I think the growth has been largely led by exports and by investment, much of it increasingly state-directed investment. And I should point out that the sort of double-digit growth that has been sustained in the past few decades, I doubt very much whether they can be sustained in the longer run, because there is a cost, there is a price to be paid for this type of growth, and you need also to look at the quality of growth. What the strong growth has resulted in is that
He just speak out the problems because so big jump, so big growth. Just the other side got a lot of problems.
leadership has not been particularly successful as they themselves wanted to move away from export and investment to consumer spending and stimulate.
Oh, this is China changed the strategy, export investment to changing to consumer-oriented economic stimulus.
Domestic demand.
But he
They
said
have not
doesn't work well.
succeeded in this. The fixed income investment in 2011 was equivalent to 50% of GDP. Now, that is not a particularly efficient use of resources.
it means not particularly efficient. It's not good, she said.
And the growth has resulted in overcapacity.
This overcapacity like a steel, like a cement, like a plastics, commodity, some resources.
Particularly in infrastructure and in property. It has, as I pointed out, led to growing income disparity, to
Growing income disparity, we did before, right? This is 힘
very serious environmental degradation.
This environmental degradation is 環境破壊.
And these are the costs that future generations of Chinese will have to pay.
Good point, right? Good point she made.
Pardon?
Wasn't the question, but
Okay, just listen. Listen. This guy, is stupid.
I thought the question was, why has China been growing so quickly? And I think that's a very apposite question. And it's not so simple to give you the answer. I mean, I think
Listen, it's crazy.
there must be a whole cluster of reasons for it. It's not just one or two. First of all, I think that there was clearly enormous pent-up possibility in China. I mean, China historically, until the beginning of, till the mid 19th century and
Oh my God, he started talking about 19th century. Open war.
European wars and so on. China had been a remarkably successful economy. I mean, in 1800, it had an average living standards on a par with Northwest Europe, and before that, it had living standards much higher, and it was a much more developed economy. So clearly, within the Chinese historical experience was a great potential and possibility. Secondly, I think that what they began to do was to learn not just from the West, but to learn from, and not just Hong Kong either, but to learn from East Asia. I mean, the most remarkable successful economies in this period were in East Asia, like Korea, like Taiwan, and so on. And I think that
He's talking about after World War II, okay?
Chinese and during this period learned a great deal. Thirdly, the state under Deng Xiaoping was remarkably pragmatic in its approach, very pragmatic and very non-ideological. And this was the new example, and it's set for the Chinese. And
He's talking about the open market strategy by Deng Xiaoping.
I think many Chinese, many young people, they are very, very pragmatic and are fantastically good learners. And I think this is what China's been. And my last point for now would be to just say the Chinese don't go on about a China model, but it does have two, I think, particular characteristics which are most unusual. One is a enormous commitment to the market, a ferocious market. I mean, Adam Smith, writing in the
Just listen, very redundancy.
late 18th century, said the Chinese market is far more developed than anything we've ever seen in Europe or that we have in Europe. But that is combined with an extraordinary state. It's a ubiquitous state. This is not just in the communist period. This is a long Chinese tradition running back into through the imperial period, and the Chinese state takes on responsibilities which are much much wider than.
She's asking to closing down, right? She just tried to finish.
Than is true of our own tradition, and is historically, not just now, historically, an extremely competent institution. So I think that is a particular paradigm that we're going to be exploring for a long time to come.
Thank you, Martin. Wait, 38 million.
Redundancy. And Weiwei is more the same as Martin.
Died of starvation. I mean, the workers.
This is very. Maybe he cannot answer. 100% he cannot answer for the die of why 38 million die of starvation. He cannot answer anything at all.
Amartya Sen and Jean Drèze tells us that doesn't happen when you've got democracy.
But that doesn't happen when you've got democracy. Okay? At that time.
In the first place, Greely Forward was a tragedy, and everyone in China knew about this. But what's important was actually the person who drew more lessons than others was none other than Lisa. He drew so much lesson that he began this gigantic reform, which put this into an kind of.
He said he means Deng Xiaoping began the gigantic reform. Okay, but this is nothing relating to the Great Leap Forward. Great Leap Forward 1958, but Deng Xiaoping is 1983 or 4. Okay.
Never will happen again. So when we talk about this length of growth, speed of growth, it's important that the Chinese state competence.
Speed of growth, nothing relating to the Great Leap Forward, right?
Give an example, we have a plan, 70 years, started in 1970 to 2050. And within this 70-year plan, 5-year plan, 5 years.
So he's just talking about completely different issues. And audience will going to claim him.
This kind of strategic planning creates tremendous, what I call, long-term demand, unprecedented in human history. So in China, if you look at the growth of people's wealth, it's a revolution. With all respect to Madame Chen, I was in Hong Kong first time 3 decades ago, full of admiration. Today you went to Hong Kong, any Chinese,
right? Yes, all right.
If you find in the housing condition is so poor compared with most Chinese living cities. Just an example to show that. And this issue concerning, oh, sorry.
This guy is, I think, is type of what can you say? He's
I should be closer. And also, by the way, concerning this famine, it's also.
And again, famine is right, but also again, the same thing he's going to speak now. He cannot focus.
During the British colonialism, you have potato famine in Ireland. You have Bangalore famine in British India. 1/10 of the population died. So each country perhaps has some ugly part of its history. We have to be honest with that. The problem is whether you can deal with it. Yet now China has succeeded in dealing with that. We can export. And
okay, just again, he's going to start to speak. He cannot focus on what's wrong.
Now, concerning this allegedly how many rights and China's is somehow unstable. Actually, I don't worry about this at all. In the first place, I don't know exactly how accurate this figure is. But what's more important is, it again shows our argument concerning civilization of state. In Chinese, we have a saying from its long history. We're opposed to the local corrupt officials, but not the emperor. So all these so-called 100,000 cases, 99% happen in the very grassroots, in the village, whatever. And they are not challenging the central government. Even provincial government is sufficient to pacify the situation. So this is a very, very, not big issue. I think I'm more concerned with British summer rights.
So he's talking about a completely different issue, right? He's blamed, so, dumb
rather
guy.
than this one, indeed. And
now he completely lost.
Yeah. I think China has found its own model of development, which is very effective, which is broadly supported within China. I think, along with this model, along this Communist Party Congress, we can expect within a decade, China's economy will be larger than the US economy. And furthermore, what's more important, it's highly likely
right?
by that time, 10 years from now, China's real middle class.
It's crazy.
I mean, economic standards, decent job, plus the property will be twice of the American population, which means 600 million people.
Thank you, Wei Wei. Jonathan Mirsky, Romans or Greeks?
Sorry, am I in the right hole? I'd like to answer your question. I'd like to answer your question about what happened. I mean, why so fast? I'll just give you one little brief fact. Take a look at a recently published book by a Chinese woman called Hai Xiaohong. It's called Shelf of Sand. She estimates that 45% of China's GDP is the work of displaced peasants who are working in China cities with no rights at all, no medical treatment, no education. So these are hardly the recognized citizens of China. So do if you'd like to check that out, do. As for, here's another possibility. If the peasants of China were so advanced, as in some sense they were in the 18th and 19th century, what did Deng Xiaoping do? He got out of their way. He didn't do anything. He just let them produce. And that's what Zhao Ziyang, a man who was in the end was put under house arrest by Deng, he pointed out that in the province where he was the party secretary, that the peasants were taking their land back and that their production was going way up. So the Chinese, who are no more or less hardworking than anyone else, have simply, when they've been given the chance.
He said farmers' land back means collective commune. What's the name in Japanese? Collective commune is Kyodo Seisan. 1980, they stopped commune system to try to split by person by person farmer to develop by themselves instead of collective way.
Have produced a lot. And the rightless Chinese, those people from the farms who first went down to the failing factories in the south and now work in the cities with no rights, are the people who produced a lot of the GDP.
Thank you. And I'm going to
I think that's enough. I didn't understand what you meant about Greece and Rome, by the way.
We'll come back to that. More questions. So if you can come over to this side now. We've been biased to the side. Up to the front, sorry.
I'm interested, Martin Jakes, you said that perhaps at some point in the near or distant future, China might be ripe for democracy. What changes would have to happen and what really would represent the tipping element for that?
Great, and if you can pass the man behind you with the orange sweater.
Anson Chen, I assume you reached your powerful position without being voted in by a single Hong Kong resident. Why do you think the UK thought it was wrong for Hong Kong to have liberal democracy? Even the last governor, Chris Patten, was imposed upon you. Was that a mistake?
A question?
So the question was, why did Britain think that it was wrong for Hong Kong to have direct democracy?
This is something wrong. Britain politicians told that Hong Kong is some problem if they're going to chasing for direct democracy. This is wrong.
But we'll come back. We'll come to the answers in a moment. Further questions. So at the hand in the middle of this block here. Right across.
We've heard a lot about being by, for, and of the people, but China, as the speech has clearly shown, is a nation for the people, as you can see by the huge amount of people that have been lifted out of poverty. But America, a nation supposedly founded on being by, for, and of the people, we've just seen an election funded.
Too fast. He can speak up too fast. Sorry.
The near or distant future, China might be ripe for democracy. What changes would have to happen and what really would represent the tipping element for that.
Great, and if you can pass to the man behind you with the orange sweater.
Anton Chen, I assume you reached your powerful position
He just misunderstand the message of Britain
without
people.
being voted in by a single Hong Kong resident. Why do you think the UK thought it was wrong for Hong Kong to have liberal democracy? Even the last government, this pattern was imposed upon you. Was that a mistake?
Yeah, mistake.
A question?
So the question was, why did Britain think that it was wrong for Hong Kong to have direct democracy? But we'll come to the answers in a moment. Further questions, so at the hand in the middle of this block here. Right across.
We've heard a lot about being by, for, and of the people. But China, as the speech has clearly shown, is a nation for the people. As you can see by the huge amount of people that have been lifted. And poverty. But America, a nation supposedly founded on being by, for, and of the people, we've just seen an election funded almost entirely by special interest groups ranging from big oil, NRA, rich and evangelical Christians, and they're funding radical candidates they can choose, and where both of the candidates attended the same university. So how, I ask you, is that by, for, and of the people? In any sense, more than the Chinese are.
Thank you. And any further?
I don't understand his question. He's talking about America ways, just poverty and so forth. Chinese, what is this different from Chinese current poverty situation compared with the American poverty situation? I think this is his question. America is also many poverty people, right? The China case is how to different from American way of life.
Questions, I'm looking at towards the back of the hall so that you're not disempowered by geography.
Clearly not make
But thank you. Yep.
Is Tibet today what Czechoslovakia was in 1938? And if China continues to grow, are we going to receive the treatment which is currently being meted out to the Tibetans?
So, is Tibet today what Czechoslovakia was in 1938? Was that last question. And we'll take one more question just down here. I'll come to you in the next lot.
Thank you. I respect what the others have said, but it seems to me the only person who's tried to argue the motion is Zhang Weiwei. The others have merely made comments about China, which I wholly respect. And I think the core of Zhang Weiwei's argument is that China is so big and so diverse that mass political parties wouldn't work. And that seems to be the key distinction, because nobody denies that there should be more rule of law, less corruption, more of a free press, etc., etc. I don't suppose Zhang Weiwei denies that at all. The key distinction is mass political parties. And I think Zhang Weiwei has argued that they just wouldn't work. Have I grasped it correctly?
Thank you. So let's
you understand this question, right? And because China is so big, so China single party cannot grasp whole China.
Let's take the first and last questions together. Is China too big for democracy? And what changes are necessary for China to be ripe for democracy, which was aimed at Martin? Who would like to jump in? Okay.
I think my name is Martin.
Okay, he's also another dumb answer. Dumb answer.
I challenge that.
I must say, what a contrary chair you are.
Also, he's not clever, okay? He's just talking. He cannot focus on what the message is supposed to be. Just listen.
Well, I'm absolutely sure that over time, China, as it has been over the last 30 years, will become more open, more transparent, more representative, more accountable. And as the population, was for so long obviously focused on basically survival and then, trying to get a better living standard in a situation of poverty, as its living standards greatly improve and lifestyle improves, they're faced with a range of choices, and that will influence the whole culture and the politics of China. The question is, this is the question, what will it look like? Will that take the form of what we call Western style democracy, or will it take some other form? And I really don't know the answer to that.
But the question that was put to you was, what are the changes necessary for China to be ripe for democracy, whatever kind of democracy that is? What should we look?
Excuse me, that's exactly what.
So he does not know the question either.
So what will those changes be?
He cannot answer,
Well, they are about rising living standards and the transformation of people's lives and conditions and possibilities and choices and opportunities. So I do subscribe to the view that as China becomes more prosperous, then pressures for greater democratization will greatly increase. Now, you asked another question, which is what will it be like? What will a Chinese democracy be like? And I think that factors like what Wei Wei is talking.
Okay, just must be careful to listen to what he's talking about. He does not know the definition of democracy. Okay, like do you remember 4 key factors of what is democracy? Just listen. He does not know what is the definition of democracy.
Talking about which is the sheer size of China and the diversity of China play here, because actually no sub-global system, which in a way is what China is, has been a democracy. The European Union isn't a democracy. So size is a serious factor, not necessarily a compelling factor, but it is a serious factor in relationship to it. Now, the other point I want to make is this. There's no tradition in China of popular sovereignty. There never has been. Likewise, by the way, there's not really a serious tradition of popular sovereignty in Japan. Japan, in my view, has a bolt-on Western-style democracy, but actually what really happens is state sovereignty.
Right? He could not focus on.
Which is accepted in Japan and China. It's a Confucian tradition. And
Confucian tradition?
So Japan is really run by state bureaucracy, although it appears to be like a Western-style democracy. And I think it's quite possible that, what will happen in China will be that there will be all sorts of new forms of expression, popular expression, and so on. But because Chinese history, because of the way Chinese see it, state sovereignty will still, in large measure, lie at the heart of whatever China becomes. I just wanted to say one other thing.
Right, he do not understand what the democracy, right?
Great question on Hong Kong. And the fascinating paradox is that it will be in 2017, it looks as if the chief executive will be elected by the Hong Kong population, which is something that the British did not achieve in 150 years.
Yes, absolutely. So, Anson Chan, would you like to respond?
Okay, yes, first I'd like to ask Martin a question. If and when China is ready for democracy, does he also envisage the disintegration of the one-party system rule? And if so, when?
Well, I don't know when. It is a possibility. I mean, nothing is forever, nothing is eternal. So,
but with respect, that is not the motion before us. The motion actually says Western liberal democracy would be bad for China. It doesn't put a time frame.
Well,
nobody is advocating a quantum leap at the moment. What we're saying, what I'm saying at least, is that there should be an evolutionary process to democracy as there was in Hong Kong. And you mentioned that in the year 2017, Hong Kong will have universal suffrage. I think that remains very much to be seen. I doubt very much whether there will be genuine one man, one vote. But I would be delighted to be.
She's talking about negative for Hong Kong, not to 2017. Actually, the elected lady is mainland China favored, right?
Proven wrong.
Could
Can I answer that question? I think it depends on what you mean by democracy. I don't think democracy centers just on one man, one vote. I'm willing to concede that at this stage, maybe one man, one vote is a little too early. But there are the other aspects of democracy which I believe to be important for all nations and for all human beings. And that is human dignity, some basic rights and freedoms.
She's talking about, okay, democracy, basic rule, one vote, one man, one vote, right? But she said, this is sort of thinking approach is a little too early. So she just, China, if we're going to focus on China democracy, she said human dignity, okay? Some basic right and freedom. No right, no freedom in China, okay?
The right to participate in the governance.
Right to participate in government.
To improve the quality of governance, to have some say in issues that affect their everyday life, to have the rule of law, not the
rule of law, right?
Rule of man, not rule by law, and to have an
China is currently ruled by law. Rule by law is Xi Jinping is law. Okay, not rule of law.
Independent judiciary that is
independent, she said, not independent China.
Not subject to the dictates of the one-party system rule. Now, I agree with Martin that in the 30 years since open door policy, there has been phenomenal economic growth, there has been a degree of personal freedom and social mobility. But the sad fact is that in recent years, market economy reforms have stalled, and the government has backtracked on legal reforms. All judicial organs in China are now subject to the dictates of the one-party.
Okay, judiciary is now subject to dictate.
Party system rule. Do we seriously think that the population, that the 1.3 billion people in mainland China are content to accept this? You say that there are mass support for the one-party system rule. Why is it then that we get people from mainland coming to Hong Kong to participate in demonstration, particularly against the blind dissident Liu Wangyang, who was alleged?
She said blind dissident is against government. The famous protest.
That committed suicide.
Anson Chan, could you answer the question?
She's a very good answer because she knows what is democracy, right?
I will gladly answer the question. First of all, I'd like to point out I was not a politician, therefore I was not elected. I was a civil servant, and I was elected. I was appointed as a result of a series of competitive examinations. I like to think that the recruitment board recruited me because they saw some potential in me. I did not owe my appointment nor my subsequent promotion to political patronage. And after I retired, I was democratically elected. I did participate in a by-election to the Legislative Council, and I won.
Actually, she couldn't be the representative person in Hong Kong. She's very good.
Wait.
Well, I will see.
Okay, this is another crazy answer.
System, I think indeed to understand China, have to move a bit away from our own European experience or whatsoever Western experience. If you have to apply this concept one party, I can say, over the past 2,200 years, 99% of the time, China was under one party rule. Except we have tried Republican and revolution, and then the country degenerated into chaos and civil wars. And of this 2,200 years, China was indeed way ahead of the world for 1,700 years. We missed the Industrial Revolution, and then we became backward. And over the past 3 decades, China indeed catching up very fast. So the Chinese one party, this party has nothing to do with the Conservative Party, Labour Party. It's a continuation of the old tradition in China.
He said the Conservative Party, Labour Party is Britain. Britain is Conservative Labour Party. This supposed to be held at London.
What we call the unified state, Confucian state. At the center of the Chinese state is always unified political entity based on meritocracy. Officials were selected for thousands of years.
Well, this is a very key point. Meritocracy is
passing
Chinese way of electing
and
top
further
people.
from that.
Wait, could I pick up the question that two of the audience put to you?
Right?
So your argument was, as they understood it, was that China is too big for democracy.
So she said they understand.
And your debating partner's argument is that China is not yet ripe for democracy. What's your view? Is it that it's too big and not ripe, or that it's...
Well, I'll take
She
both.
criticized
First,
me.
it's simply too diverse. Actually, to practice Western-style democracy, it's a suicidal plan. Country will break up overnight. Yeah. We had experience, there were no choices. To be honest, you ask 10 Chinese, 9 will tell you it's unbelievable, unimaginable. China have the so-called modern parties that every 4 years they change the central government. It's 1.3, 1.4 billion people. It's no joke. You have to go through a gradual process. Actually, I'm not thinking
Terrible brain he has,
really
right?
moving towards Western style
Right?
democracy. That's not the right word. We're very confident we can compete with Western political system. I'm writing an article which hopefully will appear in New York Times in the coming days called "The Meritocracy versus Democracy, China May Win." Yeah, this meritocracy is wonderful. We had this for thousands of years. And we really drew a lot from European experience. So we call it meritocracy, and in bracket, selection plus election. It functions very well.
Thank you. Any panelist willing to give us 30 seconds on Tibet? Is Tibet today what Czechoslovakia was in 1938? Do I have any takers? Jonathan, perhaps this is aimed at you. Am I giving you the hardest questions, Jonathan?
No, I've been to Tibet 6 times. The Chinese tried very hard, Chinese occupation tried very hard to smash Tibetan Buddhism and the way of life. It hasn't worked. It hasn't worked. That's why Tibetans are setting themselves on fire. In all the times that I was in Tibet, if you got to know a Tibetan a little bit, he'd take a picture of the Dalai Lama out of his pocket and kiss it or press it to his head. So just that alone is one of those things that if I were a Chinese, I would feel ashamed of myself about. But that's not really what I want to say at the moment. What I'd like to say is this. It's enough to make anybody weep to think that it has now been forgotten that in 1989 in Tiananmen, there were hundreds of thousands of people in Tiananmen and in 300 other Chinese cities. And what were they saying? Da da Deng Xiaoping. Down Deng Xiaoping. Smash Deng Xiaoping. Li Peng, the premier, Xia Tai, get off. And they were shouting out for democracy. Smashed by tanks. Hundreds of people were killed. Lots of people are still in jail from Tiananmen. The word is taboo on the internet. It can't be mentioned. It's deadly, and young Chinese have now bought into that because they don't know any better. The second thing is about Pew, the pollsters. In their most recent...
Well, he's talking about like a comfort woman, similar type of discussion he tried to speak of. 1989 Tiananmen Square incident, still he's just in his head, right?
The poll, what they've said is that 70% of well-educated urban Chinese admire the American system of democracy. And what did Tony Sage, who's been invoked here also?
He said this, I didn't know that 70% of the Chinese people admire American democracy.
So what Harvard say in his most recent thing, I just read it today, the paternalism of the Maoist state retains a strong influence in China today. The infantilization of society is still being managed. The leadership continues to act as if it is the parent and the Chinese people are the child. Now that's what Tony Sage, who was invoked today, really thinks about what's going on in China. But it really makes me weep to think that all those Chinese who over the years desperately wanted democracy, and by that I mean freedom of speech, press, assembly, all those things, which is the Liu Xiaobo to jail for 11 years, but that's all been wiped out. It's not that they don't want it, it's not that they're too big. Of course they want it, those who know about it. Of course they want it in the same way that anybody in this room would like to have that, with all of the defects here, the defects in America, which I left because of the Vietnamese War. Despite that, the fact is that people can jump up and down, they can coalesce, they can form parties, they can write in the newspaper.
You remember this one? Chorus.
Chinese cannot do that. The society would not fall apart if that happened. What would happen is that the party, which is hardly mentioned here tonight, which is called the state, the party might be hauled down. That would be a very good thing for China.
Party might be hauled down. I don't understand well. This one is a little bit here.
Thank you. Now we're moving rapidly into our final straight. So let me just remind you that you're going to soon have a little box thrust in front of you to vote. And you are all going to vote. So you're going to take your ticket, you're going to rip it in half, and you're either going to vote for the motion or against the motion based on how much you've been persuaded by the arguments that have been put to you tonight. To assist you in that process, I'm going to ask each panelist for their 2-minute takeaway, the 2-minute thought that they want you to leave this hall having resonating in your ears. And we're going to go in reverse order to their opening speeches. So, Jonathan.
Oh, I feel I've had my say. I donate my 2 minutes to Anson.
Wow.
She gets 4 minutes.
Martin.
My parting thought for you is only adjacent to what we've been discussing, but because I think what we've been discussing raises a much wider question, which is we don't really understand China, and we as Westerners try.
Also, he cannot focus on his issue
and understand China through a Western prism, and we expect our agenda with regard to China to be the agenda which the Chinese should follow, and we get very frustrated and impatient when that doesn't happen. And it's not going to happen because actually we need to understand China in its own terms. We need to understand and respect the history and culture of what is an entirely different phenomenon to anything that is encompassed by the Western experience. China, I would argue, for example, is, although it has called itself a nation state.
Why? He's talking very vague.
The result of weakness around about 1900 is not primarily a nation state. It is a civilization state. And it's a civilization state.
Oh, his opinion is nation from China is not nation state. China is civilization state. It's his thinking approach.
Which works in an entirely different way. The notion of identity of the Chinese is not a function of nation as it is with Westerners. It's a function, in the first instance, overwhelmingly of their relationship to civilization. So their sense of awareness, their sense of identity is fundamentally different. Why do the Chinese have such a different attitude towards Westerners to the state? The reason is because the structure of the relationship between state and society in China is profoundly different as a consequence of the fact that the Chinese feel the function of the state above all is its relationship to maintaining the unity and the well-being of Chinese civilization. So therefore the Chinese view of the state is not like ours. We view it with a certain amount of suspicion and certainly a lot of restraint. The Chinese don't see it like that. For the Chinese, the state is the family writ large. And therefore they see
writ large, 大規模。
the state rather like the head of the family. Now, this is so different from the Western tradition. And this is our great challenge, I think, over the 21st century, because China is going to become the largest economy in the world. It's going to become hugely the most influential. Projections 2030 are that China will be responsible for 1/3 of global GDP, where America will be responsible for roughly 70%. What's the great challenge facing Westerners for the next century? The task is to understand and make sense of China, because the world will become less and less Western and more China-centric.
So nobody don't understand what his message.
Thank you, Martin. Anson Chan.
Too many children. I think Martin might well be right that sooner rather than later, China will become the largest economy in the world. It will have increasing economic clout and will seek to use it.
She's going to make good speech.
Its so-called soft power. So against that background, all the more important that what happens within China, how its people are treated, how those in power govern, because they do have an impact on Hong Kong, on the rest of the world. At this stage of China's development, when we talk about democracy, as I said earlier, in reply to the question, we're not saying you should move straight to multi-party system rule. We're not saying there should be one man, one vote. But we are saying that the people, Chinese people are no different from all human beings on this planet. They want human dignity, they want participation in government, they want fair, just society in which the growing economic wealth of the nation as a whole is equally shared in the same way as they are expected to share in the pain when there is an economic downturn. It is anybody's guess whether the phenomenal near average 10% growth achieved in the past 3 decades are going to be sustained. I rather think not. The point is that China is at a stage of development where to sustain economic growth, to achieve real social harmony, there has got to be reforms on the political side. Leaders often tout the importance of maintaining harmony. But harmony cannot be subject to the dictates of the ruling party. Harmony only comes when every individual, the masses, feel that they are fairly treated. At the moment, we see actually 2 classes of people. Look at the way that migrant workers who do not have hukou are treated. They don't have access to education, to a lot of other social welfare services. You have a growing income disparity, at least in the early days of the...
Those points you studied, right? So this is, I think, she can speak at based upon what is democracy. And the other speaker, that the Chinese supporting people, they don't know what is the current issue in China.
The communists take over. Those in the rural population did see a significant improvement in their standard. But in recent years, the income disparity between those in the urban areas and those in the countryside are not narrowing, they are widening. We have massive overcapacity. I think we have a looming difficulty over non-performing loans because there has been vast credit expansion, particularly following the Wall Street collapse in 2008. So, for the sake of all of us, I think Chinese leaders, and I hope that the new leaders coming in, will have the vision the foresight, the courage, and the political clout to initiate political reforms in order to underpin Hong Kong and China's long-term prosperity.
Thank you.
She's very clever, right? She's very clever compared with the other Chinese, or Chinese supporting guy.
Zhang Weiwei, you get the last word. You get 2 minutes, not 4, which is what Anson Chan had, thanks to the generosity of her fellow
some big speech in going to
Thank you. Actually, the success of China can be summarized in one remark by Deng Xiaoping, which is called seeking truth from facts.
Listen, he
It's
can
just
speak
so
of nothing.
common sense. Just check with any Chinese you meet in London, in Europe, in Beijing, Shanghai, in China, United States. I can tell you, by my minimum estimation, 80% will say today's China is the best time in China's own history. It's common sense approach. Whatever opinion surveys you conduct, even in human rights. So
really,
seek truth from facts. Even on this controversial topic,
No.
freedom of the media, freedom of the press. My goodness, you can press any button, check the internet. You can find 100,000 articles criticizing Chinese government on the Chinese websites. It's just so part of common sense. It's vibrating with internal debate on all kinds of issues. It's totally different from the past, from time when Johnson was in China. Now, there are alleged so-called persecution of certain disciplines. And these are really the radical of the radicals by China. And even the Chinese approach to them is, I'm afraid, it pales a lot or much in comparison with the America's persecution of WikiLeaks and Assange. No comparison. One final remark. In 1793, British King sent a memo to China and had an audience with the Chinese emperor. The Chinese emperor was so arrogant that China was the best. It's the end of history. China was dead. So China missed industrial revolution, and China began to sharp decline. West, I'm afraid, became saving state. Really, I hope West will be alarmed to this fact. In this sense, I agree with Mark. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The votes are being counted, but while they are being counted, we have time for a couple more comments. Now, I'm aware that we didn't get any from this corner or up the back there, so is there anyone dying to make a comment? Yes, there, right in front of you. Oh.
Oh, I'll get close to it. I always get quite nervous when everyone says that China is going to carry on growing, because that's exactly the kind of reasoning that had people behind the whole subprime mortgage crash. China's doing very well politically when they're growing at 10%, but at some point they're going to have to combat recession or at least slow growth. I feel that if you don't, when people hit recession, and that's when people feel they need an outlet for their anger. You're saying that 80% of people support the government. What happens when only 20% of people support the government when they have a recession? How is the one-party government going to deal with that? That's my worry about it.
Thank you.
You understand?
We're not going to have time for answers, but this lady here had one last comment.
Was addressed by Anson Chan, so it was all really about human rights and that everybody should have the opportunity to be able to vote, to be able to pen the word and all the
and sword.
things that Anson Chan has said. I agree with wholeheartedly, and I'd just like to say on behalf of the entire room that I think the debate has already been won by you. So thank
That burns.
And
Ouch.
just to lengthen the suspense by 30 seconds. I'm going to give 30 seconds to the lady here in the scarf.
Thank you, Nori. I think we should at least have one person from China's younger generation to speak here. As a Chinese, I feel thrilled that there's opinion that China is going to rule the century very soon, and it feels really good to be able to vote. But my question is, does economic growth or remarkable achievement, as Martin puts it, really justify the flaws in the current political system in China? And is the current political system really enables every citizen, or at least the majority of the population in China, to share the fruit of economic development?
Well, this means currently China is rich and poor, right? Actually, these people occupy all income, all growth. So this is what he's pointing out, how it's going to share fruits of economic development, right?
Thank you very much.
Well, the cause of the widening is created by the
exactly.
Now the
Right,
debate result. So the good news for Martin and Wei Wei is that they have persuaded one person in the room to change their mind. Voting for the motion were 229 people. You'll recall there were 228 before you came in. Now, voting against the motion, persuaded by Anson Chan and Jonathan Mirsky, 362. That's a lot of swing voters and a lot of committed voters swinging. And the result I, as chair, am most thrilled about is that only 24 people decided that they didn't know. So a huge thank you.
We know who you are, we know where you live, and we're going to come and get you later.
Interesting, right? It's very interesting.
So thank you.
So there are the people who vote remain pretty much.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's an interesting result.
So Western liberal democracy would be wrong for China, and majority voted not wrong. But because it's not true story, because Anson Chan, she's super lady, very persuasive. And the other side, Chan Weiwei, Jack Ma is so bad for answering the question. Simple reason is that, okay? And so this one is a lot of difficult word here. And,
Wait, look, can you go back? Can you go back? Piggy bank. Can you go back, Piggy? Can you go lower?
oh, this one is
okay.
no.
Right? That is okay. Right.
In the front speaker piggy bank.
Okay.
I just added 2 words because of just I don't know why I had to insert this word, but
Understand.
I just put it in bottom line. So moving to the 8 more immortals of China. 8 immortals of China. This is the 8 immortals of China. This is immortal China old myth or something.
Myth.
M-Y-T-H.
Myth.
Are often represented together in art, and they are understood to be mildly amusing and relatively harmless beings who spend their time entertaining themselves in various ways. As immortals, they collectively represent long life. A picture of them are particularly associated with birthday celebrations. I don't know why it's birthday celebrations or something that they're talking about, but anyway. At the same time, they are not divorced from religion. The bas relief is base. I'm going to show you later. Right here, this is one base, not bas, base, okay? At the right side of the page, here, is from Taoist temple, country yard in New Territories. One story about the 8 immortals across the sea is that the 8 immortals across the sea here. is that they are making rather too merry, and their mind clouded by wine. Clouded means get drunk, right? Right? Clouded is get drunk.
No.
What do you mean? Cloud? I don't know.
Cloud. So foggy, right? Can't.
Foggy, yes, foggy.
Can't see. No clear mind.
Oh, okay. Bye-bye. They decided to journey forth to discover all the wonders of the undersea realm.
Realms.
Undersea realms that are not found at home in heaven. The expression 8 immortals cross the sea can refer to each member of a group making a distinctive contribution to their collective success. But it can also refer to each of them being left to his own devices, or to each one working to outshine the others. Okay? This is everybody different. They have different tools. This is, and also you need to read Japanese immortals, Sennin, 李鉄海、鑑賞理、土道品、来山話、鑑賞庫、河川庫、超過論、総呼吸、8%. Okay, so this is characteristics. 老若男女とも権利貧富低地。破線合杯。力合わせて海渡る。OK?
いつもは、書く
どれ
そこです。はい、そこです。
確証陣痛。
確証陣痛。
I don't want me. 確証陣痛。
はい。
確証陣痛。おのおの陣痛を発揮。発揮する。発線火解。
発線火解。確証
陣痛。发现过海搁牵行动 ，Chinese。发现过海搁牵行动。Okay, this one is a different meaning. 千人は中国独立の8人の英雄。8人の英雄は誰かっていうと、ここに挙げた通り8人。鄧小平、陳雲、胡信、楊尚昆、包一方、李先念、王信、伝なんとかなんとか。わかんない。これが革命の時のね、ジェネラル、ジェネラル。後にその3人が入れ替わって。これはお父さんね、習近平。これさっき見つけたの。
あ、そうなんですか。
探してわかんない。どうやって探したかっていうと、最後はね、八大元老で出て、中国8人の革命家で出てこない八大元老っていう、これやって見つけたの。それで、今日はね、もう一つ、二つ見せたいんだけど、ビデオね。
はい。
エリック・リーって非常に有名なね、彼のスピーチがあるんですよ。
はい。
彼は、he's talking about like this. 一つの今の中国の体制を認めていいんじゃないかっていう議論をして。で、メリトクラシーね。メリトクラシー、実力主義。デモクラに対したね、メリトクラシーを中国の能力主義。それをもう一つの、いわゆる民主主義だけじゃないっていう。ね。これ、こうやって書いてるのは、エリック・リーは選挙のことしか言ってないのね。だからこうやって書いてある。単語はね、 多分メタナラティブって知らないと思うんだけど、絶対的な存在、真実と保証されるようなあらすじ。メタナラティブじゃないよっていうことで彼はこの本文なんか言ってんだけど、メタナラティブっていうのは絶対的な真実っていうふうに言われていること、そういうことに対してメタナラティブと言ってるのね。絶対的真実。いや、そうじゃなくて、民主主義がメタナラティブじゃないよって、多分そういうことだったかな。そんな類のこと言って。
絶対的な存
要するにメタナラティブっていうのは絶対的な真実というふうに思われたこと、絶対間違いない本質、そういう意味でメタナラティブ。
そうですね。
例えばね、例えば民主主義ってメタナラティブ。でもエリック・リーっていうのは、いや、民主主義じゃないし、主義もあっていいんじゃないのっていうと、not メタナラティブ。はい。
僕は事実対真実だと思います。事実対真実。
いや、違うんだ
だ
よ
から、民主主義で、選挙の話してるわけですよね。
そうじゃない、これ後で。
選挙結果は事実。
いや、そうじゃない。メタナラティブっていうのは、要するに、今まで絶対的な真理だとか、
真理ですよね。
そういうふうに思われていたことをメタナラティブ。
メタナラティブ。
ね。だからメタナラティブ、民主主義がメタナラティブ。
バージンメリーからイエスが生まれた。
そう
そうですよね。揺るぎのない真実、事実じゃない。
そう。OK。あとはまあ、こういう感じかな。Common age, grand, rational, salvation.
Salvation.
Salvation. Prospectus. Full. Alleviation. By leaps and bounds. Self-collection. Quasi. They're talking about democracy, quasi-communist, or something like that. Perpetuate. Prolong. In dire need of. Trap. A priori. Venture.
Not a priori.
A priori. Counterintuitive. Upward mobility. Upward mobility. Vet. Officialdom.
Don't know that term.
Officialdom, 官僚. Patronage. Merit. Put down. Suffrage.
I would say, I think it's put down there's something after that, right? Put down on, right?
Put down on.
I think, don't just say put down.
Put down on.
I think is one phrase.
Oh, just wait a minute. I'm going to show you that.
Okay.
Suffrage. Competency. Competency. Dismember. Whopping.
Whopping.
Generation X, Y. Legitimacy.
Okay, I had to see the word whooping. I think whooping is maybe something different, but we'll see.
Dismal. Elaborate. Perpetual. Misimpression. Hunky-dory. Wrenching. mind-boggling,
Mind-boggling.
do away with,
Wait.
panacea,
Uh,
panacea,
Name.
dusk,
Dusk.
indictment.
No, indictment.
Indictment? Not indictment?
That's DICT.
Indictment?
No. The DICT, right? Is it an E or is it a indictment? Right?
Indictment. No, indictment.
Indictment.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm wrong. Okay, wow, I wasn't. Indictment.
Indictment.
Yeah, thank you.
Hubris.
Hubris.
Supplant.
Supplant. Okay.
Pretend.
Pretend.
Laudable.
Laudable.
Dogmatic.
Dogmatic.
Responsive.
Responsive.
Garbage.
Garbage.
Unstick.
Unstick.
Unstick. Okay, this is all but yeah. Okay, this is all keyword.
Okay.
Many keywords to understand. Not easy
You have
to
a nice collection of
understand.
vocabulary here.
Many words. So you're going to have a look here. Okay, just yes. Okay, let's start. Eric Lee. Maybe this is in Japanese, or do you have anything in English or Japanese?
English.
English. Okay, just let's try to.
Good morning. My name is Eric Lee, and I was born here.
What?
No, I wasn't born
Shit.
there. This was where I was born. Shanghai at the height of the Cultural Revolution. My grandmother tells me that she heard the sound of gunfire along with my first cries. When I was growing up, I was told a story that explained all I ever needed to know about humanity. It went like this. All human societies develop in linear progression, beginning with primitive society, then slave society, feudalism, capitalism, socialism, and finally, guess where we end up? Communism! Sooner or later, all of humanity, regardless of culture, language, nationality, will arrive at this final stage of political and social development.
She is one very good speech.
Speaker.
Very famous.
Speaker.
This speech.
Oh, this speech is famous.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
very famous.
The entire world's peoples be unified in this paradise on earth and live happily ever after. But before we get there, we're engaged in a struggle between good and evil. The good of socialism against the evil of capitalism, and the good shall triumph. That, of course, was the meta-narrative distilled from the
meta-narrative
theories of Karl Marx, and Chinese bought it. We were taught that grand story day in and day out. It became part of us, and we believed in it. The story was a bestseller. About 1/3 of the entire world's population lived under that meta-narrative. Then the world changed overnight.
So he is using meta-narrative for the communist society.
Vision or the image. Of
image, vision, something.
utopia.
Exactly right.
As for me, disillusioned by the failed religion of my youth, I went to America and became a Berkeley hippie. Now, as I was
your first time to see, to watch? Your first time?
Yes.
Coming of age, something else happened. As if one big story wasn't enough, I was told another one. This one was just as grand. It also claims that all human societies develop in linear progression towards a singular end. This one went as follows. All societies, regardless of culture, be it Christian, Muslim, Confucian, must progress from traditional societies in which groups are the basic units to modern societies in which atomized individuals are the sovereign units. And all these individuals are by definition rational. And they all want one thing, the vote. Because they're all rational, once given the vote, they produce good government and live happily ever after. Paradise on earth again. Sooner or later, electoral democracy will be the only political system for all countries and all peoples, with a free market to make them all rich. But before we get there, we're engaged in a struggle between good and evil. The good belongs to those who are democracies and are charged with the mission of spreading it around the globe.
Okay, you understand good and bad.
Yes.
Good is for democracy, bad is not democracy.
Sometimes by force, against the evil of those who do not hold elections.
A new world order, ending tyranny in our world.
A single standard for all who would hold power.
Now, this story also became a bestseller. According to the Freedom House,
Okay, just have a look. This is the red one is non-democratic country, and blue one is democratic country.
Wait. Electoral democracy.
Blue one is democratic country.
So number of countries. Wait a minute. So in 1957.
Yeah, electoral democracy increasing for the 1990 till 2010, right? Red one is non-democracy.
Hold on. Based on what is this? Number of countries.
Number of countries.
So in 1950 there were 80 countries.
Yeah. No, not other country. They didn't count it, but they counted like this democracy and non-democracy. But maybe more than that. But I don't know how they just missing some of those.
Yeah,
Or maybe 80 countries in the world, or like a colonial.
1950, 80 countries.
Yeah, still many Asian Pacific is not independent. In 1950, Indonesia is still not independent yet. Maybe, or independent, maybe. Malaysia, not yet. Yeah. Right? Okay.
the number of democracies went from 45 in 1970 to 115 in 2010. In the last 20 years, Western elites tirelessly trotted around the globe selling this prospectus. Multiple parties fight for political power and everyone voting on them as the only path to salvation to the long-suffering developing world. Those who buy the prospectus are destined for success. Those who do not are doomed to fail. But this time, the Chinese didn't buy it. Fool me once. Now, the rest is history. In just 30 years, China went from one of the poorest agricultural countries in the world to its second largest economy. 650 million people were lifted out of.
Okay, have a look. This is China is red one. Poverty. How many poverty? Drastically reducing out of poverty. But many times I told you, but be careful. Just poverty is $125 a day is a poverty line. But China is 2,000 US dollars a year is half of population 2,000 US dollars. So how many dollars a day is $5? Yeah, $5 a day. So out of poverty, but still $5 a day is very poor. Okay.
The poverty. 80% of the entire world's poverty alleviation during that period happened in China. In other words, all the new and old democracies put together amounted to a mere fraction of what a single one-party state did without voting. See, I grew up on this stuff. Food stamps. Meat was rationed to a few hundred grams per person per month at one point. Needless to say, I ate all my grandmother's portions. So I asked myself, what's wrong with this picture? Here I am in my hometown, my business growing leaps and bounds, entrepreneurs are starting companies every day, middle class is expanding and in speed and scale unprecedented in human history. Yet, according to the grand story, none of this should be happening. So I went and did the only thing I could. I studied it. Yes, China is a one-party state run by the Chinese Communist Party, the party, and they don't hold elections. 3 assumptions are made by the dominant political theories of our time. Such a system is operationally rigid, politically closed, and morally illegitimate. Well, the assumptions are wrong. The opposites are true. Adaptability, meritocracy, and legitimacy are the three defining characteristics of China's one-party system. Most political scientists will tell us that a one-party system is inherently incapable of self-correction. It won't last long because it cannot adapt. But here are the facts. In 64 years of running the largest countries in the world, the range of the party's policies has been wider than any other country in recent memory. From radical land collectivization to the Great Leap Forward.
You understand, right? Radical land collectivization, this 集団農場ね。Great Leap Forward, 大躍進。
Then privatization of farmland.
詳しいプライベートで準主営化。準主営化ってmean what? It means is farmer, they got personalized. They own their field, cultivating field, but they cannot own the right of the right of land. But they could own the land, but they cannot sell the land. This is quasi.
Then the Cultural Revolution. Then Deng Xiaoping's market reform. Deng's successor Jiang Zemin took the giant political step of opening up party membership to private business people, something unimaginable during Mao's rule. So the party self-corrects in rather dramatic fashions. Institutionally, new rules get enacted to correct previous dysfunctions. For example, term limits. Political leaders used to retain their position for life, and they used that to accumulate power and perpetuate their rules. Mao was the father of modern China, yet his prolonged rule led to disastrous mistakes. So the party instituted term limits with mandatory retirement age.
Okay, they prepared the rule, so the age of the retirement.
Age of 68 to 70. One thing we often hear is political reforms have lagged far behind economic reforms, and China is in dire need of political reform. But this claim is a rhetorical trap hidden behind a political bias. See, some have decided a priori what kinds of changes they want to see, and only such changes can be called political reform. The truth is, political reforms have never stopped. Compared with 30 years ago, 20 years ago, even 10 years ago, every aspect of Chinese society, how the country is governed from the most local level to the highest center, are unrecognizable today. Now, such changes are simply not possible without political reforms of the most fundamental kind. I would venture to suggest the party is the world's leading expert in political reform. The second assumption is that in a one-party state, power gets concentrated in the hands of the few, and bad governance and corruption follow. Indeed, corruption is a big problem, but let's first look at the larger context. Now, this may be counterintuitive to you. The party happens to be one of the most meritocratic political institutions in the world today. China's highest ruling body, the Politburo, has 25 members. In the most recent one, only 5 of them came from background of privilege, so-called princelings. The other 20, including the president and the premier, came from entirely ordinary backgrounds. In the larger central committee of 300 or more, the percentage of those who were born into power and wealth was even smaller. The vast majority of senior Chinese leaders worked and competed their way to the top. Compare that with the ruling elites in both developed and developing countries, I think you'll find the party being near the top in upward mobility. The question then is, how could that be possible in a system run by one party? Now we come to a powerful political institution, little known to Westerners, the party's organization department. The department functions like a giant human resource engine that will be the envy of even some of the most successful corporations. It operates a rotating pyramid made up of 3 components: civil service, state-owned enterprises, and social organizations like a university or a community program. They form separate yet integrated career paths for Chinese officials. They recruit college grads into entry-level positions in all 3 tracks. And they start from the bottom, called Keyuan. Then they could get promoted through 4 increasingly elite ranks: Fu Ke, Ke, Fu Chu, and Chu. Now these are not moves from karate kids. Okay, it's serious business. The range of positions is wide, from running healthcare in a village to foreign investment in a city district to manager in a company. Once a year, the department reviews their performance. They interview their superiors, their peers, their subordinates, they vet their personal conduct, they conduct public opinion surveys, then they promote the winners. Throughout their careers, these cadres can move through and out all 3 tracks. Over time, the good ones move beyond the 4 base levels to the Fuju and Ju level. There, they enter high officialdom. By that point, a typical assignment will be to manage a district with population in the millions or a company with hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. Just to show you how competitive the system is, in 2012, there were 900,000 Fu Ke and Ke levels, 600,000 Fu Chu and Chu levels, and only 40,000 Fu Ju and Ju levels. After the Ju level, the best few move further up several more ranks and eventually make it to the Central Committee. The process takes 2 to 3 decades. Does patronage play a role? Yes, of course. But merit remains the fundamental driver. In essence, the organization department runs a modernized version of China's centuries-old mentoring system. China's new president, Xi Jinping, is son of a former leader, which is very unusual, first of its kind to make the top job. Even for him, the career took 30 years. He started as a village manager, and by the time he entered the Politburo, he had managed areas with total population of 150 million people and combined GDPs of 1.5 trillion US dollars. Now, please don't get me wrong, okay? This is not a put down of anyone, it's just a statement of fact. George W. Bush, remember him? This is not a put down.
Just put down.
No, the one before. So put down
Before,
of anyone. If you go a few seconds back. Yes, it's Polish. You see that? Put down of anyone. So it's put down of.
No.
See? So put down, you see, just put down, put down just means to oku. But put down of makes it.
Yeah.
There you go.
馬鹿にする。
Put down, but put down, so put down.
馬鹿にすること。
Put it down. Put down. Okay, fine. Wait. Can you see that word again? Can you see that file again? Can you please put hyphen in between put and down?
Oh, okay. This is not the original file. This is the copy. So
Okay. But
I don't
please
change.
put the hyphen. That makes a difference.
No, this is verb. So put down. 馬鹿にする. And this is noun.
This is not a put down.
Okay. Anyway, this one.
George W. Bush, remember him? This is not a put down. Before becoming governor of Texas, or Barack Obama before running for president, did not make even a small county manager in China's system. Winston Churchill once said that democracy is a terrible system except for all the rest. Well, apparently he hadn't heard of the organization department. Now, Westerners always assume that multi-party election with universal suffrage is the only source of political legitimacy. I was asked once, the party wasn't voted in by election. Where is the source of legitimacy? I said, how about competency? We all know the facts. In 1949, when the party took power, China was mired in civil wars, dismembered by foreign aggression. Average life expectancy at that time, 41 years old. Today, it's the second largest economy in the world, an industrial powerhouse, and its people live in increasing prosperity. Pew Research polls Chinese public attitudes, and here are the numbers in
Okay. It's easy.
recent years. Satisfaction with the direction of the country, 85%. Those who think they're better off in 5 years
This is another way of.
to go, 70%. Those who expect the future to be better, a whopping 82%.
This is future.
Financial Times polls global youth attitudes, and these numbers, brand new, just came from last week.
As first time I just viewed this video, China usually tell a lie. But I think this is true.
But still,
Manipulating a poll.
Because who are the researching target?
No, this is China is actually they pick randomly.
Randomly, even from the small villages of the poor people.
Yeah, I think so.
Really?
Yeah. Not manipulating.
93%.
Even though they just annual income $2,000, but rice and liquor and vegetables very cheap. So even though annual income 2,000, they are satisfied for living. But I tell you, 150,000 protest movement every year. So they have bigger, like a similar type of military power, bigger than military. People control all over China. They have lots of protests, lots of against people exist all over China.
Against the government.
Against the government. Because this is simple. In China, is lots of corruption.
Yes.
Lot of bad, officials. And many places, provinces, cities, villages. This is Chinese, no way. But still they just try to make a questionnaire for those people. Are you satisfied? Many people say yes, satisfied.
Yeah. Of China's Generation Y are optimistic.
Okay, Generation Y is younger people.
One more question. Probably it depends on who's asking, right? Who's asking, but how do you think they'd be honest to answer the polls?
Yeah, I think so.
Not afraid to be honest. Okay.
Their country's future. Now,
1.3 billion. So this is average. The 15 people is frustrating. This is 150,000 protests. Okay? So they have diversified. Like are you going to make a case of Tibet? Tibet, 2/3 of people is frustrated. For western part of China, is no satisfaction. But Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, and those area, coastal area, population is very much centralized. Everybody is satisfied. Right?
if this is not legitimacy, I'm not sure what.
I thought this is right. Okay, they manipulated, but I don't think so. Tell the truth.
Yes. In contrast, most electoral democracies around the world are suffering from dismal performance. I don't need to elaborate for this audience how dysfunctional it is from Washington to European capitals. With a few exceptions, the vast number of developing countries that have adopted electoral regimes are still suffering from poverty and civil strife. Governments get elected, and then they fall below 50% approval in a few months and stay there and get worse until the next election. Democracy is becoming a perpetual cycle of elect and regret. At this rate, I'm afraid it is democracy, not China's one-party system, that is in danger of losing legitimacy. Now, I don't want to create the misimpression that China is hunky-dory on way to some kind of superpower.
Okay, just I studied hunky-dory. Okay.
The country faces enormous challenges. Social and economic problems that come with wrenching change like this are mind-boggling. Pollution is one, food safety, population issues. On the political front, the worst problem is corruption. Corruption is widespread and undermines the system and its moral legitimacy. But most analysts misdiagnose the disease. They say that corruption is a result of the one-party system, and therefore, in order to cure it, you have to do away with the entire system. But a more careful look would tell us otherwise. Transparency International ranks China between 70 and 80 in recent years among 170 countries, and it's been moving up. India, the largest democracy in the world, 94 and dropping. For the 100 or so countries that are ranked below China, more than half of them are electoral democracies. So if election is the panacea for corruption, how come
he's talking about the corruption?
These countries can't fix it? Now, I'm a venture capitalist. I make bets. It wouldn't be fair to end this talk without putting myself on the line and making some predictions. So here they are. In the next 10 years, China will surpass the US and become the largest economy in the world. Income per capita will be near the top of all developing countries. Corruption will be curbed, but not eliminated, and China will move up 10 to 20 notches to above 60 in TI ranking. Economic reform will accelerate, political reform will continue, and the one-party system will hold firm. We live in the dusk of an era. Meta-narratives that make universal claims failed us in the 20th century and are failing us in the 21st. Meta-narrative is the cancer that is killing democracy from the inside. I want to clarify something. I'm not here to make an indictment of democracy. On the contrary, I think democracy contributed to the rise of the West and the creation of the modern world. It is the universal claim that many Western elites are making about their political system, the hubris that is at the heart of the West's current ills. If they would spend just a little less time on trying to force their way onto others and a little bit more on political reform at home, they might give their democracy a better chance. China's political model will never supplant electoral democracy because, unlike the latter, it doesn't pretend to be universal. It cannot be exported. But that is the point precisely. The significance of China's example is not that it provides an alternative, but the demonstration that alternatives exist. Let us draw to a close this era of meta-narratives. Communism and democracy may both be laudable ideals, but the era of their dogmatic universalism is over. Let us stop telling people and our children there's only one way to govern ourselves in a singular future towards which all societies must evolve.
He said singular society is not only democracy, but also she's talking about China. Two regimes we should need to approve exist in the world, not only democracy. So far, just everybody talking about democracy is final goal, but she's not only democracy, but also China regime.
It is wrong.
It is wrong.
It is irresponsible, and worst of all, it is boring. Let universality make way for plurality. Perhaps a more interesting age is upon us. Are we brave enough to welcome it? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Eric, stay with me for a couple of minutes because I want to ask you a couple of questions.
Okay.
I think many here and in general in Western countries would agree with your statement about analysis of democratic systems becoming dysfunctional, but at the same time, many would kind of find unsettling the thought that there is an unelected authority that without any form of oversight or consultation decides what the national interest is. What is the mechanism in the Chinese model that allows people to say, actually, the national interest as you defined it is wrong?
You know, Frank Fukuyama, the political scientist, called the Chinese system responsive authoritarianism. It's not exactly right, but I think it comes close. So I know this, the largest public opinion survey company in China, okay? Do you know who their biggest client is? The Chinese government. Not just from central government, the city government, provincial government, to the most local neighborhood districts. They conduct surveys all the time. Are you happy with the garbage collection? Are you happy with the general direction of the country? So there is, in China, there's a different kind of mechanism to be responsive to the demands and the thinking of the people. My point is, I think we should get unstuck from the thinking that there's only one political system, election, that could make it responsive. I'm not sure, actually, elections produce responsive government anymore in the world.
One of the features.
This is actually we discussed before. Aristotle, Socrates is killed, because of he against democracy is not good, right? Because voted.
Many seem to agree. One of the features of a democratic system is a space for civil society to express itself. And you have shown figures about the support that the government and the authorities have in China, but then you've just mentioned other elements like big challenges And there are, of course, a lot of other data that go in a different direction. Tens of thousands of arrests and protests and environmental protests, etc. So you seem to suggest that the Chinese model doesn't have a space outside of the party for civil society to express itself.
There's a vibrant civil society in China, whether it's environment, what have you, but it's different. You won't recognize it because by Western definition, a so-called civil society has to be separate or even in opposition to the political system. But that concept is alien for Chinese culture. For thousands of years, you have civil society, yet they are consistent and coherent and part of a political order. And I think it's a big cultural difference.
Eric, thank you for sharing
Thank
this
you.
with us. Thank you.
The last message, what he's talking about, this is civic society, civic organization, civic sort of opinion, and whatever. This is cooperated with government policy, government movement, doing everything with government. It's village, province, everything, they just cooperate with government, is what he said. So lot of famous opponent people against the government movement, that 100% they are not allowed, put in jail. Okay, so if you're going to live in China, you need to cooperate with government.
Right.
Not against government. Not like Japan, not like America. Our world, we can against, we can make a critics of government, no problem. But China is not allowed. So this is what he said. Okay. So this is very famous his speech.
However, can I make some comment or question? Just like with the Aung San's video, he says basically to leave China alone. You know, we have our own way of doing things, and it's working fine, is what he's saying pretty much. And he's not saying that everybody should follow our way.
No.
Okay.
But because this is not democracy, because what is the big problem? He just only focus on, I told you, okay, that's his problem here. He only focus on the, which one? He just only focus on vote, right?
Yes.
Democracy is not only vote, but also freedom of speech.
Yes,
but he said freedom of speech, okay. He said freedom of speech with government, not against government.
That's not freedom of speech.
But his the last message is the last message is freedom of speech with government.
That's a tricky word.
Yeah, but he's not talking. Yeah, he just that's the reason why I taught democracy. What for key element of democracy, right? But he just only focus on voting. At voting, only aspect that voting and meritocracy is his right. But China way is good or not, but he never discussing about you need to study China way or you try to consider China way. Never talking about.
No,
Chinese system itself is acceptable. He said.
He just said he's basically saying no. He says China's doing fine. You know, don't disturb us. Thank you.
Exactly.
That's
right. This is today's my message.
Okay.
You got it?
Okay.
You understand?
He's from Shanghai, he was in US, and that's his conclusion. Well, I think what he's saying is he's just saying China's doing fine. He's just leave us alone.
What is this?
Cancel. Yes, because otherwise it's gonna force you to reboot the computer.
Okay, so summarize like this. Okay, just point is just I told you. Okay, so next week is it's very interesting video next week. What is this? Immortals.
Yes, because that's what I want to see.
Yeah, this is very interesting next week. So
next week. Okay.
Yeah, this one.
But next week in the beginning. No, I'm not gonna. I won't be.
Beginning, you just don't worry. Just
watch on my own.
well, next one is also, and I'm talking show you the. Oh, this is different. China is the world's largest democracy. This is very easy one. Not so many words, right? And the other one is communist versus Confucian. Ah, this is the other.
Oh, recent last year.
Yeah. Oh, this one is sort of educational video.
Okay.
So not difficult. Oh, many not so much difficult. And also I have another Chinese economic system. Why is communist China doing so well? Oh, this is a very short video. Two word short video. And then moving to Turkey. So next week is just, again, I'm going to discuss about China. Okay? Maybe we can get into the Turkey, Erdogan.
Okay.
Okay? So.
Oh, this is great. I'm enjoying your lecture.
Perhaps you cannot listen this great one. This one.
I'll watch on my own. I'll watch on my own.
Okay, so this is any question?
No.
Today is July. When? July 12?
Yes, 12.
Okay. July 12. And also I need to finish